agree with you
Yeah.
100% on the Bale conversation.
Hmm.
What he adds, the injection that he adds to the rotation, losing him, I feel like you take it away. It's like a pre-workout. It's gone. It's just
Yeah.
you're sluggish. He adds something to that line, that rotation, that's huge. So I agree with you 100% on the Bale, which is why I get so frustrated when people are like, oh, we should trade Bale. I'm like, no, Bale was not. Bale was a type of keystone piece in a rotation that can really bring it together. Like I said, he could be as good as a 3 or a 5 and be a phenomenal, like one of the best, a 5 that would be a 2 on some teams. I know I'm
Yeah.
doing crazy math, but I
No.
agree with you on Bayo 1,000%.
I mean, he's 26 years old. He had a 3.35 ERA last year. He's got 4 years of control. Like, why are we trading that away when we're trying to win this year? Like, I don't. It makes no sense to me. Like,
Podcast. Big John and Sean. Hot takes. Special guest. It's a 664 team. Hey. Hey.
Welcome to the most electrifying podcast in Red Sox Nation. I am your co-host, Big John, and alongside me is my other co-host, Sean Too Tall Jones, and together we are 64 Deep, a Red Sox podcast. And today we're coming to you live because the Red Sox have finally made a free agent move, and they got themselves a dog in Ranger Suarez, D-O-G-G. But here's the thing, this lineup is still unbalanced. The rotation got better, but we got roster questions that need answers. And today, we're talking roster moves, and there are 3 guys that Sean and I feel like are in play for the Red Sox right now. The big questions in today's podcast is who gets moved into where? What does Bo and Tucker mean for the next 2 months? And are the floodgates finally open? But before we get into it, let's talk about what we always talk about, our beers of the day. Sean, what do you got?
I have the Crank Arm Brewing. It's called Peloton. Nice little fancy
Ooh, I
colorful
like that one.
can here. Another IPA, as always. You know me. Actually, this one is brewed in Raleigh, North Carolina. My dad was in town this past weekend, so he brought a couple beers down for me. So made it easy for me to have a couple different options. So excited to try. I've not tried this one before.
What type of IPA is it?
I think it might be more of a West Coast potentially. I don't know if this one's a hazy one, to be honest with you, but I'll let you know when I try. It doesn't really say on the can. So
One of these days, I need to find a podcast or look for a podcast that explains to me how beers get named. Like all these random weird names that beers get. Like I have no idea. Like Peloton, aren't you worried about A, getting sued, and B, how does working out have anything
know.
to do with like an IPA? But like I said,
That's
I
fair.
want to know. I want to know. Intriguing
Yeah.
minds wants to know. Inquiring minds
Yeah.
wants to know.
What do you got?
So I'm actually, and I hate bringing back a beer, but I'm bringing back a beer because it's gonna get stale in my fridge if I don't. And the
That's
first
fair.
time I had it, I was shocked at how good it was. I'm like, oh, it's gonna taste like a beer. There's no way I'm gonna taste the honey and cinnamon, but I did. It's the Winterfest an ale brewed with honey and cinnamon. I believe it's out of Bloomfield, Connecticut. We had that conversation. Question for you, Sean, was you were not of drinking age yet. You were too young. But there was a whole marketing campaign about not fruiting the beer. Like, don't fruit my beer. My beer should be beer. And somewhere along the lines, we started fruiting the beer and coming up with things like brewed with honey and cinnamon. And so when did you think it became okay for men to drink beer like that?
To your point, I mean, I feel like, yeah, I'm 29 now, so last 8 years, I feel like that stuff's all kind of been fair game, but I don't know, to each their own. Beer is there's a lot of different kinds. You can go simple, you can go with the, cheap light beers, you can go with the more fancy craft ones, but the brewery sort of boom has definitely been a thing over the last 10, 15 years. And I think as that has become more popularized, I feel like they've been more experimental with putting different stuff like that in there. But hey, I have no problem. I mean, I don't like the super, super sweet ones typically, but the little aftertaste and notes that you get of that stuff totally makes it pretty good. So
It was an attack on our masculinity back then. Like you weren't allowed to. And so I remember I kind of had to drink it undercover. A little bit younger than you, Sam Adams was big because the craft brewing didn't really pick up yet. And Sam Adams was the closest thing to a craft brew at the time. And I loved the Sam Adams cherry wheat. Like that was one of my favorite beers, but
yeah,
it wasn't considered a masculine beer to drink. Now I don't think 2 people would even bat their eyes, or 1 person or a single human being would bat their eyes at drinking a cherry wheat beer. They might look at me and say, Sam Adams, it's not really cool to drink Sam Adams anymore, but that's about it. Right. But now there's like, it's all It's all game. We
Mhm.
could drink our fruited beers and still be men.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think it's more about the type in terms of how the potential judgment could go rather than just the tastes in it. Because it's like if you're ripping sours all the time, I feel like people are going to be like, "Do you even really like beer?" Because it's
I
more
rip
of like
sours
a
all the time.
hey, I
rip
enjoy
sours all
myself.
the time.
I enjoy myself a sour as well, but obviously I'd like to have a little variety there. So.
And it's gone out of style. Like I just got into them last summer and they've gone out of style. I'm like, well, I guess I missed it. I'm like, I didn't realize I'd like it so much, but I really like it.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
into
fair.
sours. But right now, I'm going to crack open this beer,
Yeah, let's do it.
enjoy my honey and cinnamon. And like I said, it really tastes like honey and cinnamon. And we just had a fresh coat of snow hit the Northeast. It's just fitting. And again, I don't want stale beer in my fridge. Rule
Very
number
fair.
1. 1, never have stale beer in your fridge.
I agree. No, it's funny you bring that up because I was joking to someone. I'm like, gotta start having there's a bottle shop nearby where I live, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to start buying the single cans that they have because if I buy the 6-pack every week to have a new one for each episode, I'm like gonna have too
That's
many
how-
in the fridge. Honestly, I gotta put pressure on myself. to
Or
drink
that's
them
how
all.
habits start,
Exactly.
right? That's how that happens. That's when your fiance
Mhm.
comes to you and says, "Sean, we need to have a conversation about what
Exactly.
you do on Sundays."
Exactly.
All right,
That's pretty
Ranger
solid, though.
Suarez.
It's
Yours is
very
solid?
bitter, but good. Yeah, it's good, but
You like that though.
Yeah.
That's your type of beer. Is the bitter
yeah,
beer.
yeah. But I think the hazies are almost a little less bitter sometimes. This is more like a prototypical American style IPA, which I still do enjoy.
Gotcha.
But yeah, definitely heavy on the bitter. But to your point, yeah, I do enjoy it. So.
Those bitters that you're talking about, the prototypical American IPA, are actually those ones are too bitter for me. And again, those ones give me a headache. I prefer more of the hazies. Right? They're
Yeah,
a little less
no.
bitter, a little less chomp
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But again, I'll take my 6.5% alcohol in my Winterfest, and we're gonna have ourselves a show.
Nice.
So Ranger Suarez, let's jump into Ranger Suarez. I quickly,
Mhm.
because I wanted to get ahead of it, jumped on, threw out an 8-minute short on Twitter, giving my opinions on Ranger Suarez. So those that are new to the pod, you're going to hear my take again. Those that have already heard my take, I'm not going to lead off with my take. I want your take, Sean. We've not even talked about it. I have no idea how you feel about Ranger Suarez. So floor is yours, my friend. Give me
Yeah.
your hot take on the Red Sox signing Ranger Suarez. And I'll drink my
Yeah.
beer while you do.
Yeah, of course. Well, we talked about this on a couple of the previous pods, the last one, and I think one of the earlier ones we had, where I had mentioned that the only way I'd sort of be okay, quote unquote, okay with them not bringing in some big impact bat or re-signing Bregman or anything like that was if they leaned heavily into the rotation and they doubled down on having a really, really good, really 1 through 5 across the board and get that clear cut number 2 behind Crochet that they kind of alluded to a couple times, that there was a lot of skepticism whether that was going to happen after the Sonny Gray move. And so the pivot from Bregman very clearly was them attempting to do that. And there were reports saying that they were, going to potentially explore that route just because they have funds to spend that are no longer going to be allocated on big time free agent bats. So this was obviously the biggest addition of the offseason to this point. I will say this, while I was very pro the idea of them bringing in the number 2, Suarez was not exactly my top choice, I would say. I think that obviously the numbers have been there, and I'm not going to be all negative on this, but there are some at least yellow flags, I will say, in terms of Suarez's numbers. He posted a career low fastball velocity last year of only 90.5, which obviously is very, very low across the board, but it also has been declining year over year. He was at 91.2 the year before last, 93 the year before that. So he's had this steady 1 to 2 mile per hour drop in fastball velocity year over year the past few years. He's obviously into his 30s at this point. And what makes me a little nervous about the fact that he doesn't have some high velo or anything like that is that he's also a low strikeout guy, a low swing and miss guy. He's 24th percentile in whiff rate last season, 55th percent in strikeout rate, which isn't awful, but it's obviously not his bread and butter. He's more of a ground ball guy. And another thing is that his ability to be sort of an innings eater and workhorse has not really been a part of his forte. On paper, you'd think this guy that's low velocity, that's, inducing soft contact and stuff like that, you'd think that he'd be able to go deep into games and pitch a lot of innings, but he's never once in a season hit 160 innings. He's never once in a season hit 30 starts. He's averaged only 147 innings pitched in 26 starts over his 4 years as a full-time starter. So to me, his kind of profile feels more of like a very high-end 3 or a low-end 2. So if they were gonna go big fish hunting on the number 2 slot, I probably would have preferred they go trade for a Freddie Peralta or trade for a Cole Reagans or even a Framber Valdez, who I know has a little bit of a similar profile, not a huge strikeout guy, but just a bigger body of work, been a little bit more consistent over the span of his career, big time innings eater. I would have considered him more of a 1B to a Crochet's 1A. But I do say all that to say that, they are 100% a better team than they were before they signed him. And for all of the sort of, I wouldn't even call them red flags, but sort of yellow flags, like I mentioned on Suarez, the results have just been there. And so it's really hard to argue with that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm really just looking at the last 4 years as a sample size for a lot of the numbers I'll lay out real quick, just because that's when he's been a full-time starter. But over the last 4 years, he's got a 3.59 ERA. He's been sub 3.7 3 of the 4 years. He did have a little bit of an off 2023. But what's encouraging to me about that is that the expected numbers and the advanced stats in terms of run prevention actually say that those numbers are very in line with what you'd expect. It's not like he's gotten lucky on, certain seasons like we've seen, even like Bayo, people are a little low on him coming out of last year, or Giolito because they had really good years, but the advanced numbers under the hood say like, well, maybe they overperformed a little bit based on what you'd expect. But if you look at Suarez's expected ERA over the last 4 years, it's 3.72. If you look at his FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, which is increasingly more relevant for a guy like him who doesn't strike a lot of guys out, it's at 3.57. So like he's just been a guy that's going to have around 3.2 to 3.5 or 6 ERA, and he's got a career 3.38, which is like really, really good numbers. My initial reaction was like, Suarez, that's kind of a lot of money. He wasn't my first choice, but when you dig into the numbers a little bit more, aside from just the results, like he has produced, and there's a reason that he was one of the top pitchers on the market.
You made some good points. Some I disagree with you on. Actually, disagree with you on a bunch of them in the early points. You made some good points. Declining velocity, I agree with you, which I wasn't aware of. That declining velocity does worry me. As good of a crafty pitcher that he is, eventually velocity catches up to you. You only can do that for so long, and then eventually you just batters are able to sit on your pitches a little bit better. It happens with every crafty pitcher out there, whether it's Maddox or Greinke. Over time, eventually, as your velocity decreases, it does become an issue. The other point that I think you made was a really good point was on Suarez's innings pitched. Yeah, he hasn't been healthy. He hasn't been able to put in that workhorse type season for the Phillies. But here's where I really like him. And this is where I think it's a great move for the Red Sox. And there's going to be a lot of things I can break down with Suarez and why I like him. His hard hit percentage, absolutely elite. Right. So 31.1% and the barrel percentage at 5.5%. He's one of the top pitchers out there, having the ability to get hitters to create weak contact off of them. And I get it. We want that 98 mile per hour pitcher because it's a leading indicator to success. It's very rare that pitchers are able to have velocities sub 94 miles per hour and be able to have success, because in 2025 and 2026, you need to have that explosive fastball to be able to get guys out. You need to be able to have a strikeout pitch. That's just what works. And so it's very rare that a player like Suarez comes along and is able to do it for a long period of time. But where Suarez is different, and this is where I'll say I don't care about his 90 mile per hour fastball, is because I've watched other good to great pitchers buck the trends of these analytics and sabermetric stats and have Hall of Fame type careers. Greg Maddux is a great example. I just brought up him. Greinke is a great example as well. I'm not saying Suarez is either one of those, but he has done it for a long enough period of time that I'm okay with where he sits on his fastball, that I don't believe that he was 1 year of luck and then he's going to blow up. I just think he's done it for a long enough time with enough sample size that he is a solid number 2. And we'll get into the playoffs on Suarez as well. But let me ask you this, Sean, right? Because he's a number 2 in this.
Yeah.
And you know me, I mean, I was half joking, but also as well, in the back of my head, I would love it if we did it. Go
Yeah.
all in on Scooble. I was making the point in previous pods that if the Red Sox had a true 1A on the top of their rotation, you have a chance to beat anyone. I think Craig was listening to me. I know Suarez isn't a 1A, but playoff Suarez is. And if Red Sox make the playoffs, and I believe they are still a damn good enough team, even right now, to make the playoffs. Let me ask you, Sean, Garrett Cole and Max Fried versus Garrett Crochet and Ranger Suarez in the playoffs. Who wins that matchup? Who's got a better 1-2?
It's tough to say. I mean, if we're going on track, Max Fried has not been very good come postseason time.
And Cole is what, 35 coming off Tommy John? We don't know what he's going to be either.
Right. Of course. I mean, I think to me, no brainer. I'd rather have Crochet than Cole at this point, just given the age and the mileage and the injuries and whatnot.
Now let's do the other two. Suarez versus Fried. Who would you rather have start a playoff game?
It's tough. I think Fried is a better pitcher overall. There's a reason he got more money, more years. He's got his track record is Suarez's is great across the board. Fried's is even more ridiculous, at least if we're talking regular season. Like, he's been a sub-3 ERA guy for basically his whole career. And to me, he's a legitimate like ace of a staff and like at worst a 1B to a 1A. But it is fair to say that Suarez has absolutely outpitched him in the postseason. I mean, you've been mentioning it, but I'll say the number just so everyone has it. I mean, 1.48 postseason ERA across 42.2 innings is no joke. That's a big sample size, and he's done it in sort of a long relief role. He's done it as a full-time starter. Like, he's thrived across the board in that role, and Fried has been inconsistent. He's had some great starts in the postseason. He's also gotten completely shelled with some 6-7 run allowed performances, which we haven't seen out of Suarez. So you can see I'm dancing around the answer a little bit.
Fine, I'll give you another one. I mean, we could argue about this one. The numbers that would actually point to Suarez being better, and if he really is that dog that we think he is. And I'll pull up a graphic in a few minutes to talk about him compared to Pettit as I did before. You'll see the similarities between the two of them, big game pitchers. Let's go to the Blue Jays. Right, we'll call Gaussman. You want to give it to Yasevich or Bieber? Either one. Regardless, Boucher and Suarez versus Bieber, Yasevich, Gaussman. Whatever you want to take for those 1-2. Who's got a better 1-2 punch?
Well, probably Sox, but I think that a big part of that to me is because I think Crochet is miles better than anybody Toronto has. I mean, I think Gaussman's great, but to me, like, he's an underqualified ace, even though the numbers have been really good, especially in the postseason. But like Crochet, I mean, Again, we should not forget that Garrett Crochet is, at worst, the third best pitcher in baseball, based on last season at the very least. So, to me, he's carrying, like, we could have had Sonny Gray at number 2, and the discussion would still be open with the Blue Jays if we're comparing the top two.
But
to your
point is, the Red Sox 1-2 can match, like last year, our 1 could match up to anyone except maybe Scooble, right? If we played Detroit, we might have been at a disadvantage.
He could still match up. I mean, you could prefer Scooble. They're still the same caliber and tier, at least off last year's performance.
There's not one that's, we could all say hands down, is the better pitcher, right? Scooble, Crochet, it's a wash. I go into battle with Crochet and Suarez. I look around the rest of the American League. Everyone else's 1-2 can't match our 1-2. 1-2, right? I'm not saying they're one. Let's say Gaussman or Cole. Let's say Cole comes back at full health. Cole at full health is going to be better than Suarez. But like Wu and Gilbert or Kirby, if Kirby ever gets his stuff back. The point is, you look around the rest of the American League. Last year, our 1 matched up to everyone. In the playoffs, Suarez, 1-2, we have an advantage every game with those two guys going out there. That was my point on that one.
Yeah. I will say I would not go as far as to say as like the Red Sox definitely have the best rotation in the major. I've heard that kind of floated around. I think they have a top 5 rotation, no doubt, right now, based on just.
Well, I didn't go to the National League. I agree with you. I mean, I stayed out of the National League for that reason. I'm talking about the American League. So I agree with you. But in American League, and I think we're going to make the playoffs with this roster, that 1-2 scary.
It is. And I think the only other AL teams sort of in the conversation from the rotation perspective are the ones you called out, which are Seattle, the Yankees and Toronto. And all to those point, I think a lot of those guys have maybe more track records than some of the guys we have in some capacity at least. But there's a lot unknown with a lot of those teams. I mean, like you said, Garrett Cole, we don't know when he's coming back. We don't know how he's going to look. He's a lot older than people remember that he is. He is legitimately in the mid-30s. And again, we'll see what he looks like coming back from that serious injury. And then Rodon also just had surgery. So he's going to be out for a chunk of next season as well. So if we're talking full strength Yankees with, Cole, Fried, Rodon, Schlittler, and Lewis Heel, like that's a really good five. And they've got depth pieces with Warren, and they just traded for Weathers, etc. But if you remove Cole, you remove Rodon, and say that those are unknowns, then that I'm suddenly not that scared of that rotation, to your point, where it's like little top heavy, and then a lot of guys that are like, they're okay, but they're not blowing me away. And to your point with Seattle, Bryce Miller had a really, really bad down year last year. George Kirby wasn't quite as good as he's been in the past. Castillo's also getting up there in age, but he's got to be 33, 34 at this point as well. Of course, love Brian Wu and Logan Gilbert, but it's maybe the backhand has a little bit more question marks there. And then to Toronto, it's like they have 5 guys that I like, but I don't know who's the clear one. Here's who's the 2. It might play itself out. And
Cease. Let's put Cease.
That's what I'm saying, Dylan Cease.
Yeah.
But to the point of Dylan Cease, like he had a 4.7 ERA last year. So like
No,
we love his stuff. We love the metrics.
I love
we
rubbing that into Blue Jays' face. I'm like, you spent a lot of money on a guy with a high 4 ERA.
Yeah, and like of course, like do I think he's better than a 4.7 ERA? Of course I do. But he's been inconsistent year to year results wise. Even if the stuff says that he should be better than that, it's not the first year he's had where the ERA was like well above 4, a little bit unexpectedly. And then Gausman also getting up there in age. Savage was phenomenal for them, but again, I mean, what did he start 4 or 5 games for them in the regular season? Like very small sample.
Jabba Chamberlain, Jarrett Wright for guys, right? For guys you want to look at that you can't base your whole career off a small sample size. But yes.
Yep. And I'm a Bieber believer. I think he can still be really good, but again, a lot of injuries tough with him. So there are question marks with all these other teams, just like there could theoretically be with the Sox if you were going to take the negative outlook of the rotation. So to your point, the rotation should be one of, if not the best in the American League. But that kind of brings me to one other thing that I wanted to mention was there's been some rumors about like, oh, well, maybe they'll trade Bayo now. And I will just put on the record, if we did trade Bayo, I like this signing a lot less, I would say, because I like this ad as sort of a, let's just go out there and ensure that we have one of the best rotations in the American League, if not all of baseball. The second you remove Bayo, look, are Bayo's advanced stats as good as Suarez's? Absolutely not. But results-wise, they had pretty similar seasons last year. If we're just looking at like the ERAs and across the board, the innings pitched, all that stuff. So again, I think Suarez probably has a bigger track record, and you'd feel a little bit better about him than Bayo in the rotation, obviously, because we like him as the 2 and we wouldn't want Bayo as our 2. But the point is, it's not that much of a jump up from what we got out of Bayo last year for me not to say that the rotation is, somewhat similar to last year. You're basically plugging Suarez in the Bayo spot, plugging Gray in the Giolito spot, and the rotation was good last year, especially the top 3. But we remove Bayo, we are adding more question marks, more uncertainty, and I like the certainty. We've been talking about this like since we've been doing this. I've been begging for us to have certainty.
Sean, that's an old man thing. Give me routine, and I need to get up at 6:00 in the morning, get down to the gas station, and get my coffee. That's what turning into.
But I've been begging the team to have sure things and like just high floors, things we can count on. We know what we're getting out of this guy. We have enough unknown and high upside, but maybe low floor type players across the whole rest of the roster. Like, so if we trade Bayo, I'm going to like this deal a lot less because you almost essentially swapped out Bayo for someone who's a little bit better than him, but you're paying him like more than double the cost. So to me, that's like a lateral move that's just adding money to the payroll. So I don't know your thoughts on that about your openness to trade Bayo, but I'd be very against it just because.
Let's get into that a little bit with the
okay.
Paredes talk. I actually agree with you a bazillion percent. Best case scenario, Bayo is number 3 on this team. Worst case, when I say worst case, it's because other
players are being better than we thought they would be.
Correct. He's a 5. And that's scary. I mean, that's late 90s Yankees scary rotation if he ends up as a 5. So I agree with you so much, which is why I get so annoyed on Twitter when people talk about trading Bayo for Paredes. I'm like, no, absolutely not. One more thing on Suarez, and I'm actually going to bring up the Pettit example, and I want you to react to it. The other reason why I love this move, and this is something no one's talking about, we're essentially neutering the Yankees, because when we can set up now playing the Yankees, forget about even the matchup of Cole versus Crochet and Suarez versus Fried. You have two dominant lefties that the Yankees outside of Judge are a lefty team. So what I mean by that, Jazz Chisholm, if they bring back Bellinger, right? Now you've Chisholm is terrible against lefties. So now you've just completely neutered their lineup on top of it.
Austin Wells also was like
correct.
basically platoon last year.
Right. So now you're having, if they face up against them, I mean, even in the regular season, you might have a 3-game series where Chisholm plays one of those 3 games, which is embarrassing for a guy who's paying that much money to be a platoon player. So that's the other part too about this that I love about the Suarez. You're neutering your competition in the process about it, because they're not set up to be able to face both Crochet and Suarez. And we saw last year outside of Judge having, even Judge with that 1 home run that he had against Crochet in Fenway Park. Crochet owned him. Crochet owned the Yankees last year. He dominated them. There was 1 game where he struggled. Other than that, owned them. And now you got him and Suarez. Own job.
No, it's fair. And it's funny. I will say Bellinger weirdly has reverse splits where he actually hits lefties better, which is bizarre. But to your point, we saw last year, like, they benched Chisholm in game 1. Like, am I the biggest Jazz Chisholm fan? No, but he's at worst their 4th best hitter. I mean, he was definitely one of their top guys in the lineup last year. So to have Boone so intimidated that he feels like he's got to bench one of his top guys just to play the matchups, like, I'll take that all day. And then Ben Rice obviously was hitting bombs off us in the postseason last year, but he didn't start in game 1 either. And so it's like, you're at least having to make them make hard decisions, which is a good place to be.
I got up right now. Let me blow it up. Versus Suarez, and you'll see the era. You'll see, crafty lefties, very similar. And it wasn't overpowering. Suarez isn't overpowering either. Crafty's a great way to talk about them because they made their mark again off of weak contact. You look at Suarez's numbers: 1.48 ERA, 9.29 Ks per 9, what's his regular season strikeouts per 9? Do you have that in front of you, Sean?
Yeah, let me put. I should have it up
as I go through that. But a 1.05 WHIP, like, great numbers, and then I have this.
His regular season for his career is 8.3. Last season was 8.6.
Yeah, so he ups it by 1 strikeout per 9. So, he takes it to another level. And then you look at Pettit, for those that are too young to remember, number 1 all time in postseason wins with 19. Forget the World Series rings. I don't want to talk about that. And then that impressive 2.66 ERA and 8 clinching victories. That's what I thought they got. If they get Pettit, like, let's say they got Pettit, right? They got Pettit. And we continue to make the playoffs, which I believe we should. If I told you we have Andy Pettit as our number 2 starter, prime Pettit, you're gonna be happy with that one.
Of course.
If this holds true.
Yeah, and of course, like, the one thing I will say, like, I do feel like postseason play in particular, the sample sizes are always so small year to year, so that it's like, it can be variable. We've had good players with bad stats, bad players with good stats, vice versa. So that's why I'm not going way over the top of, like, yes, well, look, I'd rather have Suarez than any of these guys. Yeah, that's the only reason.
But 42 inning,
but to your point, that is not an insignificant sample size by any means. And it shows, like I said, his versatility, because he's come out and done long relief as well, which is, we see postseason time, that stuff can be really valuable and matter, especially when we've got depth in the rotation. I'm not saying, I'm sure we're not going to be paying him nearly $30 million to be a long reliever. I'm just saying that, he's got experience in all those moments. And we, like Chris Sales closed out a World Series game for us.
What about 2008?
Yeah, it's true. Exactly. So just having reps in those, scenarios never hurts. So
yeah, I just want to throw those stats up there. I'm hoping we get the Pettit. I know it's hard to say, even from a Red Sox fan, saying, hey, I wish we had Andy Pettit. But Andy Pettit, again, the same way I described Suarez, absolute dog in the playoffs. Didn't want to face him, hated him, hated to listen to Joe Buck talk about how clutch he was. And if we get a guy like that to back up to Crochet, I'll take that 10 times out of 10. It's going to be very hard for us to beat. But again, the part that I harped on the last pod as well, or 2 pods ago, was the fact, if we don't score runs, it doesn't matter. We lost 4-0 in game 3 of the wild card. If Suarez goes out there and gives up 1 run, we still lose. So, Sean, to that end, let's talk about some of the rumors that are floating around, because with the Red Sox going and making this move from Suarez, they still have a gluttony of position players and pitchers and the pitching staff as well. So 3 guys that we've heard about this week, at least we've heard about them previously, but they're coming back this week in full force. One is Isaac Paredes, Brendan Donovan, which we've hammered on enough on this podcast. No need to go into him as well. Brett Beatty from the Mets, and Gino Suarez. What's your take on those 3 guys? You're the GM or vice president of baseball operations. Where are you going and why?
Among those options, I'd probably go with Paredes. Again, if you asked me before the offseason if I was going to be satisfied with him as the big ad, the impact bat, I probably would have said that the offseason was close to a disaster at that point. But operating under the assumption of where we're at right now, I think he is probably the best choice. If we're looking at Brett Beatty, for example, he's 26. He's very, very cheap, 4 years of control. He had a pretty solid year last year, but he's a 232 career hitter, a 666 career OPS. He had a negative .7 WAR coming into last season across 3 seasons. And so he wasn't good enough last year for me to think that, he is suddenly turned into this really well above average starter. And the track record is just not there. Like, we see so often across Major League Baseball, these guys that have these one-off, really, like Romy Gonzalez, great example. I've talked about this on this pod a lot, where I'm like, I hope I'm wrong, but I would not be surprised if he regresses back to just the subpar utility guy that he's been, even though he had a really good year last year. Like, and Beatty probably had a better year than Romy. I'm just saying that, like, it's not uncommon for there to be these one-off, breakout years, and then they kind of regress back to what they've been the rest of their career. So to me, Beatty, I'm not even totally certain that he's like definitely worthy of being more than a utility guy based on the career stats. So that's kind of I'm not even interested in that at all. He's also a left-handed hitter, which of course we'd rather have a righty. And then on the Suarez front, I'm like, look, the power is compelling. 49 homers last year. He's averaged 37 per 162 over the last 8 years, which that's a lot of years to be hitting around that rate. But over that same span, 193 strikeouts per 162. He has led the MLB in strikeouts 3 of the last 7 years, which is almost 50% of the seasons that he's been more strikeouts than anybody else in Major League Baseball. He's also very prone to one-off, really bad, low average years. He batted 202 in 2020, 198 in 2021. Last year, after being traded to Seattle, he was only 189 and was a 213 in the playoffs. He's also a terrible defender, had a -6 outs above average, which is to say that he has very limited range out there. The arm strength isn't great. And my thing with Suarez is, I'm like, if he hits 49 homers, can you live with a 220 average and lots of strikeouts? Yeah, probably. But if he hits 32 homers, it becomes a lot harder to justify the terrible defense and the lack of contact and just not getting on base that much. And so is he closer to a 49 homer guy or a 32 homer guy? The year-over-year stats would say probably 32. I mean, he's hits less than 35 in 6 of the last 8 seasons, and he's now going into his age 35 years. So I can't bank that he's going to hit close to 50 again based on just the track record and the age. And so to me, like, would I take him? Sure. I mean, if you can guarantee 30 home runs, like, whatever. But Paredes is probably the guy for me. But again, I'm not overly bullish on Paredes. To me, it's just like a process of elimination that he's probably the best fit, given that he's, still not even 27. He's a right-handed bat. He's hit 30 homers in the past, and he's a low strikeout guy. So we can get into some more reasons I like him, but I'll open up to you and get your take.
Yeah, so I was pushing back on Twitter early in the free agent offseason when people were pushing out there for Paredes and Gino, and I said, no, stop it. We're not doing that. We're a big market team. Stop focusing on these players. Focus on Bo Bichette. Focus on signing Alex Bregman. I don't want to hear about these tier B. Now we are on these tier B players, so we have to have a conversation around
B,
them.
More like C.
C, sure.
I don't know.
So, I mean, look, I would choose Paredes out of all of them, but I'm going to flash some stats up. I spent some time building out some graphics on both Paredes, Beatty, and Gino, so you could see what I see. But I was just thinking about it as you were speaking. I've talked about it earlier with Ed Hand on Twitter. And he made a very good point that Luis Suarez is criminally undervalued at this point. And everything we saw last year about the Red Sox and their inability to put the ball in play. I go back to a Toronto series where extra innings, ghost runner on second, Rand comes up and strikes out. We can't get the runner over, and we lose the game. And that's what's going to be like with Gino, right? You're going to have games like that. On the flip side, Gino's type is a very streaky hitter where he's the type of player, if you roll the dice and you get lucky, could carry you in a postseason, absolutely carry you in a postseason, and also kill you. Like it's the sword, live and die by the sword. That's the type of player he is. But if I told you can get Gino and I told you could get Luis Suarez and he'd play a super utility role, I can figure out how to make that roster work because I would find opportunities to platoon the two of them, versatility with Meyer and move them around the diamond. There's things I would be able to do with both of them together where I could put together a really good roster, majority of the situations, and find ways to use both of them because they complement each other. But I agree. And let me throw this up for you so you can see it. I'm going to share it right now. Make it full screen. I don't know what it looks like on your end. Here are, and I have Paredes down below. Last year with Suarez, 49 home runs. You look at his numbers, a great OPS, that hard hit percentage is insane, right? When he makes contact with the ball, 47.6% is upper echelon, not quite elite yet, but it's upper echelon on hard hit percentage. He's had 30 plus homers for the last 5 years, but the bad, we know it. Terrible strikeout rate, 29.8%. And then he had a 298 on base for 2025. But look at those numbers with Seattle. That's not a batting average. That's a 255 on base. And his strikeout rate is, we'll call it 36%. You can't live with, like, that bad is so bad, you can't live with that bad. You can't do it. He hurt Seattle when they picked him up. So that's my problem with him. But if I can have a rise on the team and we go to extra innings and there's a ghost man and Gino gets up, I just pinch hit him. Or if he's a slump, I find a way to get a rise's bat into the lineup. But like that bad right there is so bad. Right? I mean, that's so bad.
I'm not in on a rise because you saying super utility, but where's he playing? I mean, he's an awful defensive player. He in outs above average last year. He was 8th percentile, or no, I'm not even looking at the right one. He was 4th percentile, -9 outs above average last year, and that was with him playing mostly first base when he played. Which I would imagine we don't need between Casas and Contreras. Like he probably wouldn't get many reps at first. You'd want him at second or third, and he's a disaster out there. And so he doesn't hit for power either, as we know. I mean, he's a one-trick pony, which he's very good at that one trick. But I will say, like, he's a 317 career hitter. That's spectacular. But his OPS last year was 719. Like, that's really bad because all he can do is hit singles, basically. And so it's like he's not, which has a place in the league. But I'm like, why not just roll with
super
Yoshida?
Pinch hitter? I changed my name. Super pinch hitter. That's what he's going to be, except a super pinch hitter role.
But then I'm like, well, he's just duplicative with Yoshida at that point, in my view. So I'd rather have Yoshida.
That's fair.
Think he's a slightly more all-around hitter.
That's fair.
So, and I don't think you can roster Yoshida and Arise on the same team. I don't think it's tenable just from the.
No, you're right. It's not.
Yeah. So at that point, I'd rather just have Yoshida because and even if we do offload him, we're probably going to have to attach assets too.
I don't want to. I actually like Yoshida in the right type of lineup, and I think look, if his everyone points to if his contract, let's say he's making $12 million a year, no one's gonna sit there and say, "I wish Yoshida was off the roster." It's the $19 million that he's making. People are he's eating up a roster spot in this current roster construction.
I agree. I think he's a plenty fine player, and we've done him a disjustice by acquiring too many players that or like play the same position or block him essentially. You know what I mean? Like that's more of the issue. Like if we had DH wide open or like less outfield depth and we had more infield depth or something like that, like suddenly he becomes a really important everyday DH and he might even bat like first, second, or third potentially, you know? So
yeah. But you look at, like I said, I think you agree with me. Gino is a streaky enough type of player, and I've seen it before, that, and again, this is all about luck. You get him hot in the postseason, he's gonna bring you to the World Series. He can also tank your whole postseason too. He goes both ways with him. That pendulum swings both ways. But those are the numbers up there, and you can see how bad he was with Seattle. Over to Beatty. Beatty's interesting. Beatty reminds me a lot of, and before you jump down my throat, he reminds me a lot of Roman Anthony because, like Roman Anthony, he struggled to get the ball up in the air. So if you look at Beatty, exit velocity is, the right side of 90. You want, for a power hitting prospect, you want them, or a power hitting player, anything over 90 is good. Really good hard hit percentage. Had 18 home runs. Has a decent eye. Walk rate is 7.6%. But this is where he gets a little bit bad. This is where his ground ball percentage, I don't have it in front of me, but he hits a lot of balls into the ground. His line drive is under 19%. I think 22 is league average. His strikeout rate is borderline at 25%, not high enough for a guy that has 18 home runs, and that OPS is terrible, right? But there's potential there. The 90.7 mile per hour average exit velocity, the hard hit rate of 46.7%. There are GMs and organizations out there, because he's young enough at 26 years old, that believe Beatty could develop into a 25 to 30 home run hitter. Looking at those numbers, I just don't know if the Red Sox want to take that risk and what they'll have to give up to do it. What are your thoughts on me coming back on Beatty? Do you agree with that, or do you still say that?
I'm still just not sold on him, just because, again, we're not too many leaps of faith. We can't keep taking leaps of faith on guys where we hope have career, like he'd have to have a career year for that to be the impact bat that we need.
Or just develop.
Well, sure, but it still would be like it's not like he was a rookie last season. Like, of course, he hasn't been a full-time starter for most of his career, but he's played 300 career games and he's been in the majors for 4 seasons now. Like, it's not a tiny sample size. So I don't know. I just think that when you're banking on guys to have the best season that they've had as a pro, you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed. Even though I get it, like I understand, like he is still young, like we mentioned, he just turned 26 in November. He was a former first round pick, so like on paper the upside is there. But then I'd rather just play Christian Campbell. You know what I mean? Like if we're gonna go for somebody that we're banking on upside rather than a sure thing, which is what I just keep coming back to, is like, if we're going to trade for somebody or add the next bat, like it has to be somebody that I can sit here with certainty and say, like, they're going to hit 20 plus home runs or whatever their key skill is, that I know that we're getting in a deal. And for Beatty, like, I don't know what that is. I don't know he's going to hit 20 home runs. I don't know if he's going to have a good average. I don't know,
Yeah.
So he's more of a super utility guy, which, again, if that was what the team needed, then I would love the ad. I think he's great for that role, but that's just not what the team needs.
So Beatty's what I would call a career limiting move in retrospect. I mean, it could be in retrospect. If you take a gamble on him and you believe you could unlock him, great. You've gone ahead and got yourself a top tier player. But if you didn't, if you go and grab him and he is what his numbers say he is, and he never progresses, then the organization, the fan base is going to be very upset about what you took or what you probably had to trade to acquire him. I'm not saying if you look at those numbers again, I'll scroll back up. I'll go back to Brady's. There is some like the stat nerds would be tantalized by that 90.7 mile per hour exit velocity and the hard hit rate. It's can you unlock his swing and get that ball in the air? If you can, he develops into a very good third baseman. If you can't, you probably traded, we'll get into it, someone like a Jarren Duran or Brian Bayo to get him. Now, again, it wouldn't be straight up Duran for Beatty. Yeah. They'd probably throw in like Jet or Sproat or somebody, which they don't need Sproat.
Or
but
Tom.
Or Tom. But again, like we talked about before, you have this glut on starting pitchers. You're good with starting pitchers. You don't need any more. You got enough young ones too with Tolley and Connolly Early and Witherspoon and what's the guy's name? The guy they drafted in the second round this year. I'm trying to blank on him.
Ooh, I'm not sure I know the second round pick, but
yeah, top tier, could be a top tier pitcher as well. The point is you have a lot of young pitchers, so doing that would not make sense. He's who I think me and you both agree with. Look at his numbers, and I'll tell you what's wrong with his numbers and what's good. Well, the good's obvious, right? 20 home runs, 102 games, a very good walk rate, a very good strikeout rate, a pull rate of 57%, Fenway, OPS of 806. For those out there, though, that are trying to tell me that he'd be even more of a monster in Fenway Park, no. The park factors kind of even out for him. The Crawford boxes are no different than the monster. In fact, they're shorter. I posted on Twitter, there's actually a home run he hit last year for his 20th home run of the season. Would have been a double in Fenway Park. So to think that he goes from, what the hell do they call? Starts with a D. What's Astros Park called now? What's it called?
I don't know. Wasn't it like Minute Maid?
It used to be Minute Maid. I'm going to call it
Yeah.
Enron. You go from
Okay.
Enron Park before your time, go to Enron Park, and then you bring him to Fenway Park. His numbers aren't going to fluctuate or change that much. Here's the interesting part in the research today and the bad. This guy is so pull happy. That's why his exit velocity is so low and his hard hit rate is so low, because he tries to pull everything. And what I worry about him in the playoffs against really good pitching with pinpoint control, I think he gets nuked or nerfed, as the kids would say. That's what I'm worried about. Regular season, great. I think if you had him and Gino in the playoffs, I just don't think, this is a really weird take, I don't think Paredes has the ability to ever carry you in a playoff series, and nor should he. But I think Gino could. But you're running a huge risk with running Gino out there. But you look at that exit velocity, the hard hit rate, really good pitchers are going to pitch him outside the whole time. And we saw this with Alfonso Soriano back in the day, where you threw him sliders in the outside half of the plate. When it came playoff time, different animal, completely nerfed. That's my worry with Paredes. He tries to pull everything. But regular season, he'd be a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Me showing you that, Sean, how do you react to it?
Yeah, I mean, I had some similar stats ready to reference, and he honestly has just like the most bizarre profile I've seen when you look at like advanced stats, where it's like you're saying, he's 14th percentile in exit velocity, 27th in barrel rate, 14th in hard hit rate, 10th percentile bat speed. Like, those are awful numbers, which typically that stuff's correlated with like.
But go look at his
power.
max. Go look at his max exit velocity. Like,
Yeah,
when
see,
you do
that's
pitch
fair.
him inside, when you pitch
Yeah.
him inside, he hammers the ball. It's like 115, something like
Yeah.
that. I forget what it is. Right?
It's
So-
just counterintuitive, because like normally when you're low in those stats, you're more of like a Luis Ariz type guy, where you're not really, the reason it's low is because you're hitting a lot of single, softballs to the outfield, whatever, blah, blah. And normally the high exit velocity and, barrel rate, all that stuff is correlated with guys who have a lot of pop on the bat. But he does have a decent amount of pop, which is what's kind of weird, because, I mean, he's basically been a lock for 20-plus homers. I know he hit 19 a couple of years ago, but overall, he's 26 homers per 162. He had 31 back in 2023. He had only 20 last year, but he only played 102 games, so he was well on pace to hit, close to 30 at least. So when he's played, he's been kind of in the 25 to 30 range for a full season, which is, to your point, it does probably come back to that fact that he's just hit or miss on when he hits the ball, because he's trying to pull everything, and so when he can't pull it, it's a
57% pull
slow
rate.
roller to the first baseman, or grounding out to short when he could have hit it the other way, like that kind of stuff. So and the other thing is, can you guess how many career home runs he has not to left field?
I'm gonna get 5.
0. Every single home run he's hit in his entire career was to left field. Not even just center field. He has no center field home runs, only left field, which is like insane.
So what's he gonna do in the playoffs against top tier pitching? Again, those guys we talked about who are going to, as we watch the playoffs, are gonna buckle down. They scout every one of these guys. They are locked in. That pitch, if I'm pitching to Paredes, I'm pitching everything outside. Everything. If I walk him, fine. But I'm not gonna let him beat me. And that's where I worry about Paredes. Gonna be great in the grind in the regular season. Gonna be absolutely terrible in the playoffs unless some reliever comes in and makes a mistake. Like, that's what you're banking on.
Yeah. I mean, so I said this when you initially asked the question, like, my answer is Paredes, but it is more of a by default answer. I don't think he's a great option. I just don't think there's a better option. And that's just kind of the annoying and sad part of where we're at in the off season, where it's like, either everyone's signed or nobody's available. Like, there's a certain tier of guy that we all wanted. That's not happening. And so we're kind of left with the cast-offs, where I'm like, Paredes has been a decent player, but he's been on 4 teams in 6 years. So, like, he's just bouncing around. So, poor guy, just from a personal standpoint, but it's also like, there's probably a reason he hasn't been able to stick anywhere, because he's just an inherently flawed player, but I just think his flaws are more manageable than some of these other guys because he's still a right-handed hitter. Again, proven 25 home run guy over a full season if he stays healthy, regardless of what park he's been in. And to your point, he does not hurt the strikeout rate. You know, he doesn't strike out a lot. He's got good command of the zone. He doesn't swing and miss. He doesn't chase. He walks a good amount. So like that's at least a good like foundation for him. But again, it's strange to have all those sort of good contact control advanced stats when he's a 237 career hitter. That's why his profile is so strange. Like, how are you not chasing outside the zone? Like, you're not riffing very often. You're getting on base, but you still can't even hit 240. Like, it's bizarre, honestly.
Right.
Like his profile. So
Great plate discipline. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he can't. Yeah. But he can't go the other way with it. But you know what? I was in the camp with you. I was totally in the camp with my guy was going to be Paredes. One Winterfest in and have this conversation with you. I'm going to roll I'm a gambler, man. I'm rolling the dice. I'm going with Gino because with the wild card spots, this Red Sox team is good enough they should make the playoffs. The AL Central's a joke. The NL West, outside of Seattle, I don't know what Houston's going to be like. The AL East is tough. We all know that one. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Paredes will be a non-factor in the playoffs. I mean, at least give me Gino and I have a punching chance. Like I do. I got a chance where if he gets hot, I'm making the World Series. And that's the reason why I'm going to go with Gino, because there is absolutely nothing in those stats and what you just said, 0 home runs to right field, right? There's absolutely nothing in those stats where I say Paredes will be an impact back come October. I know Gino has the potential to do it. A big home run, a 3-run home run against Jeff Hoffman in the 9th inning. Gino can do it. I don't know if Paredes is going to be able to do it. And that's the reason why. And I know we have like about 10 minutes left to talk about as well. Gino costs nothing. I mean, sorry, he costs no assets. If we go and get Paredes, Sean, I know me and you briefly talked about, we're probably not gonna have time to really dive into it today. We talk about it on a later pod. You're gonna have to trade someone, and the names going out there are Duran, which I'm fine with trading Duran. I know you're not. Bayo, which both of us do not want Bayo traded. So, what do you like? It's kind of a trade off. Like, what are we giving up then? Like in your eye, to get Paredes, what are we giving up then to get Paredes? And of course, it'd be Paredes. If we give Duran, it'd be Paredes and something. Bayo, Paredes and something.
Yeah. Well, just to touch on your point of preferring Suarez, I'll say this. I don't strongly prefer Paredes over Suarez. Like, I think there's pros and cons to both. And there are some people I've seen online who are like so anti-Suarez by any, like, absolutely not, no matter what. And I'm like, I can't go that far because, like, he's one of the best options, whether we like it or not, like in terms of what's out there. Like, and if we want power, he's the best power option, just undisputedly. So like, there are a lot of concessions you're making by putting him in the lineup, but at the end of the day, we need pop and he's got pop. So like, would I be okay with it being Suarez at this point? Sure. Yeah. Like, I'm not like, this sounds crazy. I'd rather us do Suarez than like Brendan Donovan at this point. I know like
that's crazy.
I know Donovan's a better player. I know.
We don't have time to argue that one.
Not in a vacuum, given the context of what the team needs, the context of what we'd have to give up. Like, that's more what I'm saying. Donovan's a better player than Suarez. Don't get me wrong.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
We might have to do a timeout and have a conversation around that one. But
of course.
But I'm glad you agree.
But back to your question about getting what would it take for Paredes. To me, if we're going to trade for Paredes, I'd rather it not be anyone who is supposed to be an overly important player in the major league roster of this team. Like, I don't want to trade Bayo for him. I don't want to trade Duran for him. I'd rather us just put together some middle of the road, prospect package. Maybe we throw in, a starter. Maybe Patrick Sandoval could be useful to them or whoever, Kyle Harrison, someone in that vein. Toley and Early become more expendable with the Suarez ad, but there's no player good enough in my estimation available for us to trade them. Like, those guys are completely off the table in a Paredes discussion, in my opinion. And look, I'm not okay with trading Duran, but it has to be a deal where you're getting back a hitter who is clearly better than him, in my opinion. And Paredes is not that. And so I can get into why I'm leaning more towards keeping Duran at this point, but unless you want to chat more about Paredes' return.
Well, so let me ask you this question, Sean, and I hate this. I think the Red Sox are more apt to make a trade than they are to sign a free agent. A, because it will ultimately be cheaper because you're going to expel assets and salary to grab someone rather than just sign someone. And two, or B, A and two, A and B, they've got a glut both in the outfield and in their pitching staff. So they got to make a decision. It would also just make sense for ease of tension on the roster if they trade someone. I've completely talked myself into this past hour of getting Gino. I think it's more realistic that they actually will make a trade and they'll end up trading for a guy like Paredes. That's my personal opinion on it, whether I like it or not. That's what I think is going to happen.
I agree.
I threw one. I was trying to be a troll. I was sort of being a troll about it, half trolling about it. But they have so much talent on that team. Sean, and I'm going to left field right now. We even talk about this. If they get Ronald Acuna Jr., like if you could throw out like Tolley, Early, Duran, what else would it take?
I'd be shocked if he's available. I'll just say that.
But
because they're looking to add though. I mean, like they were rumored on some of the free agents, and I've seen reports that they're looking to add to the rotation. So I don't know. I just think they're too talented.
But if you could,
to be selling guys off and rebuilding, and he's too young. And I know the contract's big, and there was some potential weird clubhouse stuff. But I don't know. I just think that because if you trade him, then you might at that point you might as well trade everybody. But they've got just too much talent.
They almost traded Sale last year.
Well, yeah,
they almost did that.
But he's like 36, 37.
I know. So I just want Acuna.
Just
imagine
recouping assets.
If you could. But the point is, Sean, if you could take all the talent that we had, stop focusing on guys like Paredes. Go in, like I've talked about before in previous pods.
I mean, I agree with you if they're available.
Get big
Fernando Tatis Jr. feels slightly more attainable just because the Padres salary issues and financial stuff that's been floated around. But then everyone always says oh, he's not available. He's not available. So I don't know. Look, if we can get one of those guys, I'd throw the farm at him. I totally agree. To send Tolley and Early and Marcelo and whoever. I'm cool with
imagine that roster. Imagine that.
Yeah,
I can market that team. Imagine that raw. That would be incredible. That's everything we need right there.
I'm just not even going to let my brain go there because I know that
I want to.
It's very close to a zero.
I need it.
0%.
I need it, Sean. Otherwise, we have conversations about Isaac Paredes.
I know.
Isaac Paredes and Brett Beatty and who else the other guy and Gino Suarez. That's where we're trying to sit there and get hyped up and amped up about these type of conversations. I want to talk about Ronald Acuna. I want Ronald Acuna team. We got a few minutes left. We could dive into the next pod too, because me and you have not talked about it. Why are you not apt to trade Duran with the roster that's currently constructed today?
Sure.
Because really quick, because Lou Merlone and I went back and forth on this. So Lou and I had a conversation on Twitter. We were going back and forth, and I'm like, really, you want him to be a platoon player? Now Ref Steyer's not even here, so you can't even platoon him. And he was abysmal last year against left-handed bats. But go ahead, Sean.
Duran, I was very okay and almost pro with trading him to start the season, I will say, or the offseason, excuse me. But that was under the assumption that Bregman would be back, or we'd add Alonso, or Bichette, or somebody. And so I just think that the lineup is not good enough to trade him. I think that you are making too much of a concession to get rid of him. He's not expendable anymore. He's expendable from a positional standpoint, but not from a lineup standpoint. The surplus is there, sure, but he's a better player overall to me than Rafael Cedon or Cedon Rafael. Sorry, because sure, Rafael is a phenomenal defender, but the hitting is really kind of an issue. And Duran's at least average fielder and above average hitter. If I went through some of the numbers just the last 3 seasons, so I know that we've got if you want to call it outlier 2024 for Duran. Whatever, but even last year, if we're calling it a bad year, he still was close to a 5 WAR. But the last 3 seasons, so that's in the season before the big breakout too, he's averaging a 6 WAR per 162 games. If you just look at his total WAR per season, not 100% per 162, 5.2 WAR, 140 games per season. He's got an 810 OPS, 123 OPS plus, 41 doubles per year, 10 triples per year. And you're probably like, oh, well, that OPS isn't popping off the screen. But let's look at the team leaders in OPS last season. Devers was first, not on the team anymore, with a 905. Roman was second at 859. Sure, we have him. Happy to have him, of course. Third was Rob Refsnyder, who at 838, which one was the platoon player, which is why the OPS was inflated. And 2, he's not on the team anymore. 4, we have Romy Gonzalez at 826. Also a platoon player, which is why those stats are inflated because he's mostly only playing against lefties. So if he played every day, that number would be worse. 5th, Bregman at 821, no longer on the team. And Lowe was next at 790, One, again, another platoon player, and two, no longer on the team, which means we have one returning player from last season who had a above 790 OPS. That's not a platoon guy, and it's Roman Anthony. And then even if we go back to the year before that, the first on the team was 871, Devers, not on the team. Second was Tyler O'Neill, 847, not on the team. Ref Snyder at 830, not on the team. Sis at 800, who is injured, and we don't know what we're getting out of him. So over a 2-year sample, the only player that is going to be on the team next season that will be playing every day that we has hit 800 OPS even once over the last 2 years is Roman Anthony. And the sample's small, and of course we expect him to replicate that. But like the 810 OPS for Duran, like he's our second best returning full-time player from an offensive production standpoint. And you can look at other stats. I know it's probably oversimplifying it just looking at OPS, but like Story, we know he had a good year, but like we've talked about this, like if he's not hitting home runs, he's probably striking out, or like he's a limited hit. Exactly.
Or getting a year older. I agree with you on the Story part.
Yeah, and so it's like over the past 2 years, Duran is the best and most reliable hitter that is still on the team over the last 2 years. Like almost everyone else I named is not on the team anymore. And so we're not, if you trade Duran out and get somebody else who hit an 810 OPS, to me, that's a net even. And the lineup needs to improve from what it is right now, not stay the same. So we can reshuffle players to be more positionally balanced. But to me, the lineup's not getting any better when we're doing that if we include Duran in the trade. So was I on board with trading Duran? Yes. But that was only if we made him expendable with the moves we made this offseason. But to me, he's no longer expendable because he's just too, like, whether we like it or not, he's one of our best hitters. And our lineup's not good enough to be trading away one of our best hitters.
It's a really, really good point. It's also not why I didn't come at it the way that you said it, but now that you're saying it, I get it. It's also, but why I was also okay with us trading Sedan as well. I said, look, just whatever it is, figure out a proper roster construction because we have unbalanced lineups. We have an unbalanced roster. So at the time, you're right. It just made sense for Duran, but I was also okay with like looking at Sedan and Abreu and say move them as well. I think what you're trying to say, Sean, is we should get Raul Acuna Jr. and go all in. That's what you're trying to tell me. But no,
I'm
but look,
fully on board.
But the other thing too is the reason why Duran's name has been floated around is because we've got a hole in the infield, and that net negative that we ever better not be David Hamilton. Whatever net negative we put there, right? The sum of the parts doesn't equal the whole. Or maybe I'm making the point. The point is that getting rid of Duran, right? We can strengthen our team around it because there might be other guys around them good enough. The closer we get to the season, and I really do think a deal is going to happen. Ed Hand said it as well. Maybe Sedan plays second base. That's
the other thing is that you were saying that Duran suddenly is like a part-time player, and I'm like, there's enough maneuvering that can be done where all the guys in that kind of surplus of players can basically play 6 out of 7 games. I mean, like sit Marcelo Meyer for one game, then the next game play him at third, put Sedan at second, and sit whoever. Maybe we trade for Paredes, sit Paredes, and then move Sedan to second, and then play all the outfielders. Then the next game sit Duran and put Sedan back in center. There's like enough guys that can play different positions and move guys around where like Sedan can still play 5 out of 7 games in center and then only sit once a week. Of course it's not ideal. This is not ideal by any means, and it's making Cora's life pretty difficult and a little unfair, but it's the reality of where the team is right now. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to avoid this, then you should have matched Bregman's deal and gave him the no trade clause. If you wanted to avoid this, you should have, paid Bo Bichette, but they didn't do those things. So here we are. And I just think that if we are trading one of our 2 to 3 best hitters for a lineup that nobody currently feels confident we're even going to be an above average lineup as currently constructed, even if we add somebody, but we just talked through the options, none of them are really great. And so I think Duran's a better hitter than everybody we've named. I think Duran's still a better hitter than Donovan personally. I think that last year was like the floor for what Duran can be. And he still is a lock to hit 40 to 50 doubles. He's a lock for double-digit triples. Like he's going to hit 15 to 20 homers. We've seen him hit over 20. Like he had a career high in RBIs last year. Like I know he strikes out too much. He struggles against lefties a little bit. He's not a perfect player, but the lineup is so much of a question mark that, look, I'd love to add a perfect player, but that player's not out there. And so we got to settle.
Raul Acuna Jr., make it happen. trade for Acuna. No, I think we need a right-handed bat though. The more you say it, like maybe it's Abreu that goes. And like I said, and Twitter loves to oversell defense. Something has to happen.
Yeah.
I'm okay keeping Duran there, but there needs to be a right-handed batter that we could pinch hit for him when need to be. He does bring a lot to the table. When he's hot, he's good.
He's streaky for sure. I mean, it's not ideal like you mentioned, and again, he's got 3 years of control left, so he could stay and we could have the same conversation next year, and he's still going to have value with multiple years of control.
But you guys do Tolle and Early and Duran and someone else for Ronald Acuna Jr. I just want you to think about that roster construction.
Look, I'm fully on board. My point is that if we could, I'm okay to trade Durant if it is for a significant, obvious upgrade in the lineup. In that case, sure, fine. But unless I was trying to put together what the lineup would look like if we traded Durant, and I'm like, God, dude, who is batting third or second? It gets ugly quick. I'm like, are we just penciling in Marcelo? Hope that he can hit up there. We putting Yoshida lead off. There's a lot of I feel really good about the 5 through 9 in the lineup, but then the 1 through 4, I'm like, God, we're trying to ask some guys to do something that they're probably underqualified for.
Yeah. I wanted to hit on Bayo. We gotta wrap the podcast up. Maybe we'll talk about Bayo next week as well. But I agree with you 100% on the Bayo conversation. What he adds, that injection that he adds to the rotation, losing him, I feel like you take it away. It's like a pre-workout. It's gone. You're sluggish. He adds something to that rotation. That's huge. So I agree with you 100% on the Bayo, which is why I get so frustrated when people are like, oh, we should trade Bayo. I'm like, no, Bayo is a type of keystone piece in a rotation that can really bring it together. Like I said, he could be as good as a 3 or a 5 and be a phenomenal, one of the best, a 5 that would be a 2 on some teams. I know I'm doing crazy math, but I agree with you on Bayo 1,000%.
I mean, he's 26 years old. He had a 3.35 ERA last year. He's got 4 years of control. Why are we trading that away when we're trying to win this year? It makes no sense to me. And I also think he might, I don't know how much this plays into it, but there's less pressure on him this year, So maybe that will help him be better.
He's really a 4. He's a 4 in this rotation because I think Gray will get the 3 spot. They'll figure out a way to. They actually might try to break up Suarez and Crochet, so they have a variety in between. I don't know if it's going to be Gray or. Right. Yeah. So he might be a 4 on the team. And again, I've seen guys come out and talk about how former Major League Baseball players just fall in love with Oviedo and stuff too. So that's why we talked about it's very possible Bayo ends up a 5. The other one really quick, and I'll close the podcast off. I do want maybe next week or sometime this year we should talk about it. This offseason is Marcelo Meyer. He's got to hit lefties. His comp was Corey Seager when he was drafted. If you can't hit lefties, you cannot be a first-round player and not be able to hit lefties called next Corey Seager and just be a really good guy at hitting righties. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yep.
Sean?
Totally agree.
Yeah. I mean, look, the podcast, I want to thank everyone listening to the podcast. We are growing very quickly, especially the last episode, watching the streams come in, the subscribers come in. I want to thank everyone who's listening to us. We're moving really quickly. I'm really excited for the season. If you're listening to us for the first time, please like and subscribe below. We'll be back at you within a week or so. Sean and I will come back with some more stuff. These podcasts go by a lot faster than I thought they were going to go by, which is a good thing. I might need maybe 2 beers deep next time. We're 64 deep. Maybe I'll be 2 beers deep for our podcast. I think we should actually, when we get to our 64th podcast, we should do something special for it. I don't know what it is.
I agree. That'd be good.
Streak across Fenway. I don't know. But thank you guys all for listening. We'll be back next week. Sean, anything you want to say to wrap up the pod?
No, just good convos as always. I think to your point, we left a lot on the bone we could have kept talking about for sure. So we'll definitely have more convos and content coming out soon because a lot to talk about, especially if one of these trades does go down.
Absolutely. Till next week, guys, we are 64 deep, a Red Sox podcast. Good luck. Goodbye. Good night.